St. Louis sports fans, go deeper with STL Sports Central Insiders. Get exclusive access to Bernie, Randy, Claves, Jamal Mayers, and more, plus your chance to watch a Blues game in the alumni box with Jamal himself. Monthly giveaways, Bernie's columns all week, and support for local sports media. Join now at stlsportscentral.com.
One thing I don't want to forget here, we got to shut down the show, but I really do want to play this. It's about a minute and a half of Chaim Bloom from yesterday's breakdown, talking about Ivan Herrera, his development. Maybe even we can describe it after the quote comments as the lack thereof of his development as a catcher, and kind of how that has factored into things. This will be the last thing we talk about today. Here is Chaim Bloom yesterday talking about Ivan Herrera's development as a catcher over the last
year. A little
year.
more to it than that. Just, in terms of, especially with some of the perspective I've had on our organization, where we've been in player development, I don't think when you look at the entirety of his career, I'm not sure he was ever really set up for success at that position because of a number of factors. And that's not, a negative or taking shots at anybody. I think it's just, some of it's just about the state of the organization, what else is available at the position internally, where you might not get that fair shot, and yet you're being asked to perform in the big leagues. And so you're not in a pure teaching environment either. Yeah. And it all has to start with the player wanting to do it. I think it's really hard. I've experienced this with catching conversions before, which obviously he isn't, but you could say this player should be a catcher. If they don't want to do it, it doesn't matter. It's hard enough to do when you want to do it. He wants to do it. So that's the first step. He was very clear on that with us. Yeah. And we saw an opportunity as an organization, especially having a minor league curriculum that's more built out. Well, he didn't get to take advantage of that for various reasons, both because it didn't exist in the minor leagues when he was here, and also because he was pressed into service or called up in different ways to the big leagues. And because he can hit, he got other opportunities too. So there's a chance in the offseason, outside of cleaning up what he needed to get cleaned up medically, and then combining the rehab processes that was going to take place anyway with a deliberate throwing program that hopefully puts him in better position, but also to make up for some lost time just on some of the X's and O's and the basics of catching from a mental perspective.
Randy, nothing there that surprises you. You've been talking about the lack of catching instructors in the minor leagues for years now, and it's clear now. Chaim very blatantly laying it out there, not trying to call anybody out, but hello. A complete lack of development for him as a catcher over the years.
Absolutely criminal. And it's a shame. And I don't know that he'll ever be a good defensive catcher. I can tell you this, in 2020, when we were down at spring training and the Cardinals still had Yadier Molina behind the plate, the Cardinals were saying that they didn't need to worry about the future of the catching position here because Ivan Herrera was going to be the guy. And they loved his defense. They actually, at that time, they said, he just needs to get his bat to catch up with his defense, and he'll be great. Obviously, that has changed. But the Cardinals went for years with all these catchers like Carson Kelly, Andrew Kisner, Herrera, and didn't have a minor league catching instructor. It was absolutely unbelievable that they didn't have somebody to help these young prospects along. And then, we get the idea that just because Yadier Molina was here at the major league level, that he was helping guys out. Well, that wasn't necessarily the case. He was here as the catcher and people could observe him, but I don't think that he was actively seeking people out and saying, okay, this is how you go about this business. And that wasn't his job. I didn't expect him to have to do that. But the point is, there wasn't somebody specifically entrusted with advancing the careers of the young catchers. Mike Matheny was gone from the organization by then. He had done a really good job while he was here as the manager, but he was gone by then.
But and to Mike's point though, when he was the manager of the Cardinals, his job was not to develop young players. He wasn't going to be working with, and at that time it would have been a very young Ivan Herrera, or at that time it would have been Ivan Herrera, it would have been Andrew Kisner. But he wouldn't have been working on a lot of catching stuff, day to day, the way you need a coach to be doing.
But spring training he could, and during the off season he could, and he would bring minor leaguers into town and work with them. It wasn't day to day during the season.
No.
But at least they had somebody who had been a Gold Glove quality catcher who did have the desire to teach, that was doing it. And by the way, if I were Chaim Bloom or the Cardinals, I would call Mike Matheny now. Even though you do have Ethan Goforth, you do have a minor league catching instructor, you could not go wrong by having Mike Matheny working with this wealth of young catchers that you have. It would be a positive. There is no negative to having a catcher with Mike Matheny's history working in your organization and working with your young catchers. It'd be a smart move on their part. But I think Chaim laid it out there, and it's really a shame the way that's kind of the essence of what happened to the organization. They just allowed it to crumble, especially at the minor league level, because they were spending their budget. They gave John Mozeliak a budget and said, spend it the way you want. And this was all laid out in a Katie Wu piece at The Athletic at the end of the 24 season. He decided to spend his money on the major league team rather than on the minor league system. And the minor league system was a skeleton crew and was really devoid of quality people, not quality people, but quality instructors that were advancing minor league players. Let me give you one typical tidbit. When the Cardinals traded Harrison Bader at the end of, was it 22 when they got Montgomery?
Yeah.
22. And they move Jordan Walker from third base to the outfield, put him in right field right away. That night, the night they made that trade. Throughout that 2 months that Jordan Walker played the outfield at Springfield, he had the Springfield coaching staff, but didn't have a single person that was there dedicated to him becoming not a better outfielder, just an outfielder. He'd never played the outfield in his life. He'd been an infielder, third baseman. And so the Cardinals go from July 31st through August through September with him playing the outfield and never have somebody dedicated to helping him get better at the position. And so that was just typical. That happened with the catchers. That happened with infielders. It happened with base runners, happened with outfielders. They didn't have enough people to teach players how to play. Here in Missouri, we can finally legally bet on sports because DraftKings, America's top-rated sportsbook app, is now live in our state, and we can make every game even more exciting with same-game parlays and money lines and props and more, all from your phone, all safe, secure, and easy to use. Missouri fans know game day, the tailgates and the noise and the passion. Now with DraftKings Sportsbook, you can bring that same energy to every snap and every touchdown and every win. And right now, Missouri customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets instantly. No waiting, no nonsense, just pure action. Powered by America's top-rated sportsbook app. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app today and use the code STL Sports, like you see on your screen there. STL Sports. New Missouri customers bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets instantly. That's code STL Sports. The crown is yours in partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 21 and over. Physically present in Missouri. Eligibility and restrictions apply. One single use odds boost per customer. Market boosted to plus 100 odds. Max bet $50. Expires at 8:20 p.m. Eastern Time, December 7th. Terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos.
Which is why there was the year which is why there was the 2 or 3 year complete downfall of the defense, and then you needed to have the major league coaching staff of Mike Schilt and Ali Marmol rebuild the defense at the major league level, which was ridiculous that it had to happen. Good. Credit to them. Obviously great coaches, but
and there was a time where the Cardinals had Dan Billardello at low A as their manager there. Ali was the manager in high A. Mike Schilt was at double A at Springfield. And the Pop Warner was your manager at triple A. And everybody was on the same page. And I don't know why they wouldn't allow Ali to get everybody in a room. Joe Madden always did this. Tony always did this. Whitey always did this. There's a cardinal way to play, right? You get everybody on the same page. For whatever reason, this stopped happening. And I don't know if it was under Schultz or Ali. But the way it was set up with Tony La Russa as the manager and then Mike Matheny was, Dan Billardello would get the guys at low A, teach them how to play the Cardinal way, hand them off to Ali. Ali knew what they knew. Okay. And he developed them, got them better at what they needed to get better at, handed them off to Schulte. Schilt gets them and says, okay, here's what we got to work on. Here's how we're going to make you better. Here's how we're going to get you to St. Louis. He hands the kid off to Pop Warner. Pop Warner polishes him up, gets him ready to go. He gets to the majors and he knows how to play. That completely went away. That level of communication and the assembly line of building a player completely went away. And that's something that Chaim Bloom has to fix.
Last thing here, JD Miller. How could an organization that excelled at development just let that go? For me, my observation has been a combination of too much group thinking, kind of yes man, kind of everyone had the same ideas in the same rooms for too many times.
Yep.
a little bit of a budget pinch that was probably exacerbated by COVID, but started before 2020. I think that needs to be said, is that the fall down of this development started as far back as 2016 and started to really crystallize in 2019. And so it happened before COVID, but I think a financial situation exacerbated by COVID. And I think those are the two biggest things.
Well, and then arrogance.
Arrogance, yes.
Because they thought that they were the smartest guy in the room. And here's what happens sometimes in sports. I remember somebody I don't remember who it was. I think it was Grant Wistrom. We're talking one time about the downfall of the greatest show on turf. And they were so good in 99, 2000, 2001. And you start drafting players, and players think, oh, I'm on the Rams. We're going to be great because we're the Rams. Well, it doesn't work that way. You need to teach players how to play your way. And I think the Cardinals got so arrogant that it was almost like, well, if we draft him, he's going to be a great player because he's a Cardinal.
Oh, wow.
And it doesn't work that way. But I think that there was a level of arrogance and belief that just because they were wearing the birds on the bat, that they were going to be good. And they forgot about the part of developing them and then imbuing them with the necessity of being a winner. And that's what happened to the Rams. You get Trung Candidate. Did you ever notice that Trung Candidate, whenever Marshall Faulk would get hurt, he would get hurt too, because he really didn't want to play. And you get a lot of guys that walked through those doors, and Tommy Polly is another one. They thought that they were joining a really good team, and they thought, oh, but I don't have to work really hard at being great because I'm a member of the Rams. And I think that probably happened with the Cardinals in a different way, but there was the lack of competitiveness that you forced players to have in the past. That's going to be gone now. This is going to be an organization where you're going to have to compete to have your spot.
I don't know why, but it is funny to me that I just mentioned 2016, and then you mentioned kind of the lack of everyone just thought it would work out. And it's funny to me that the Cardinals 2016 first round draft pick, Delvin Perez, which who fell down in the first round. Everyone's like, wow, the Cardinals have never gotten to draft this kind of talent, and then it never worked out. And people kind of wondered, wait, why didn't us finally getting to draft a top 10 talent? Why didn't that work? And maybe these things are not just completely coincidental.
Exactly. And it's unfortunate. And that's ultimately why you have a new administration in charge right now. And I think as much as they didn't hire anybody so that they could learn about why they were being passed up, the ownership is not devoid of blame here either. Definitely John Mozeliak deserves blame. But baseball became a lot more expensive over the last 10 years. When you're hiring all these analytics people, you're buying all this equipment, you're hiring all these teachers to teach people how to use this equipment.
Your regional TV cable money dries up.
Right. Yep. So, but Mozeliak was given X amount of dollars and said, okay, use this for the organization, but he was given no direction as to, okay, here's what you use for the major league payroll. This is what you use for the minor league structure. There was no instruction given there. And I think that's part of ownership's responsibility, is to say, you get in a room and you say, okay, we're going to spend this much on development and this much on your major league team. And that wasn't happening.
Yeah, I think, arrogance and a misallocation of resources might be the easiest way to describe what happened.
Absolutely.